Welcome to the Black Belt Business Podcast. My name is Matthew Brenner, and today I'm with Chris Natzke, and longtime martial arts school owner, been in the industry for a while. You've probably seen him at industry events, and he's going to be helping celebrate a big birthday coming up for Bill Superfoot Wallace in November 2025. Chris, thank you so much for coming on here.
Absolutely, Matthew. It's a pleasure to be here.
So I know you ran schools before, but tell us a little bit about what you're doing now.
What I'm doing now, yeah. Well, I'm still involved with the schools here in Denver in my association. So we have 3 schools here. In fact, tomorrow's a black belt testing. So I still play that role, but I don't own the schools anymore. But what I've been doing, focusing on over the last 10 to 12 years, is a business I created called Black Belt Leadership Speaking and Coaching. So what I basically do is take the ideas that we have from a martial arts standpoint, the lessons that we've learned, the strategies and things like that for personal development and growth. And I speak to corporations, I speak to youth groups, et cetera, either in keynote speeches. I also do a corporate board breaking experience.
Why should people listen to you?
Why should they listen to me? Well, I think I'm pretty good. I think I'm pretty entertaining. And, one of the things also, one of the things I get frequent feedback from people when I do my events is the level of engagement. I think we as martial arts instructors, it's second nature for us to get people up and moving and involved. And involved. And oftentimes you don't see that with speakers, but that's kind of my forte. So kind of blending those two worlds together and kind of being the same person I was when I was teaching full time and on the deck, but just doing it in a different context.
So now you're doing like a corporate speaking gigs sort of thing with a martial arts slant to it.
Yeah, exactly.
Very cool. So how do you book gigs like that?
Well, you know what? It's not necessarily easy. It's like they say it's simple, but it's not easy. So I have a virtual assistant that goes out and reaches out. I have lists of leads that we follow up on. And then also, many times speaking begets speaking. Right. So when you're out there and you do a great event, you're going to have people come up. And I also have a capture system that's right there that participants can literally give live feedback. And that also captures their information. And if they have speaking possibilities in the future, I can follow up with those as well. So, and I'm also very active on social media. I have something now I've just kind of reformatted. I call it 2 minutes to breakthrough. So that's out every week. So I've got little snippets that are out there constantly as well, keeping my name and face out there.
So what kind of companies are you usually speaking at?
Well, it all depends. I've done, all the way from exercise industries. I've done people in the banking industry, real estate industries. I've also done insurance people. And then I've also done an awful lot of youth, particularly high schoolers are kind of my sweet spot for that. I can go in and speak to grade schoolers, but there's not huge budgets out there. But I love that high school age. That junior and senior, and particularly
why those years?
I don't know. It seems like my message resonates with them. And I've always particularly, and I've done a lot of at-risk youth at that age, as well as, kids that are in leadership positions. And it just feels like the message relates to them. And many times they're at a place in their lives where they're getting ready either to graduate soon or go on to college. And they're in this, where do I fit in? How does this work kind of mode? And they tend to be a little more receptive and a little more mature at that age too.
Wow. Okay, cool. So then if you're doing a high school, like are you reaching out to high schools like, hey, I'll come speak?
Yeah.
Sort of thing?
Wow. Right. In fact, I've got a campaign going out right now with Future Business Leaders of America for all their state conferences in the United States that they'll do in the spring of next year. And yeah, they'll come together for conferences that are statewide. And so they'll oftentimes have speakers come in and that's where I'll do my message.
So how did you end up going from martial arts instructor to this? I mean, I understand being in front of the room, commanding leadership. I get that. But that's assuming like a way different learning curve.
Yeah, 100%. Well, it kind of comes twofold. Prior to opening up my school, I spent 10 years in corporate. So I was a sales trainer to some degree, as well as a sales executive for Procter & Gamble for 10 years right out of college. So I spent a lot of time in front of the room. And that was actually, of course, enhanced from all the time I spent as a teenager in front of the room in a martial arts class. And so what was happening was I was just, I was being successful in the martial arts world. And the way that I distinguished myself, when I opened, I had 6 schools, competitive schools in a 2-mile radius of me. And so I said, how do I differentiate myself? And back in the day, this was before social media, dating myself, but it wasn't going to be through yellow page ads and this, that, the other. I thought, well, what if I went directly to the schools and I started speaking? And that's what I did. So I had a whole thing that I called Kindness Counts, which was talking about nonviolent conflict resolution and bully proofing. And that's what I did. And I kept getting asked back and asked back. And then I had a good demonstration team that would come, and that sealed the deal. So that was really my main way of getting new students at my school toward the end, was through my speaking. And then just had people go, wow, that message would resonate here. You're really good there, et cetera. And it just kind of grew. But it really started, if I get honest with myself, I was literally just looking for a unique way to promote my school.
Okay, got it. So you're looking for a way to promote your school, not transition to a different career.
No, and it just kind of, I mean, there was always kind of in the back of my mind, because I would go to certain conferences and personal development things and go, I think I could do that. That looks like fun. But it kind of evolved over time. And I didn't get into the martial arts so I could make this transition, right? It just started to really make sense to me. And I was just feeling I wanted to take my message. I know that, and I'm sure all of your listeners out there, we can make a tremendous impact in people's lives through martial arts. And I guess I wanted to play a little bit bigger of a game in terms of going to a little wider audience. And that's why I made that decision.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I think every martial arts school owner thinks they're a good teacher or a good speaker. Personally, of course, I think that about myself, right?
Right.
But I've never done any formal training. I've never done, I don't know, what's called Toastmasters or something like that, right? Or different training for public speaking. If I wanted to get into that, if I was honest with myself and said, hey, I could definitely be a lot better at what I do, where would I start?
Well, I think Toastmasters is a great way for people to get started. In fact, have not been an active Toastmaster, but I've actually been a guest keynote speaker at their events here for the state of Colorado. And the program's outstanding. I was a little bit leery of it, but I spent the day with them after I gave my keynote in the morning. And it's just really a wonderful program, not only in speaking, but also personal development. Just give my little plug there. But that's probably one of the best ways to do it. And what I also do coaching with people who want to be speakers. And one of the things that I tell them to do is, there are a lot of service organizations out there. That's how I got started. Service organizations, meaning Kiwanis and Rotary clubs and Optimist clubs, et cetera, that need a speaker for every week when they meet. And my mentor here in the state of Colorado used to provide a list of all those. And that's how I got started. There were days I was giving 3 talks a day. I'd give a morning meeting, then a lunch meeting, then an evening meeting. And that was a great way for me it was my laboratory. I could see what worked, what didn't work, what joke landed, what point landed, et cetera. And also, this is my own personal opinion, if I could keep 600 kids at an elementary school engaged, I could probably keep any audience engaged, right? I learned that very quickly. So again, for my style of speaking, and it feels just right for me, it's not only just speaking, but it's a high degree of animation and getting audience involvement, et cetera. And I think it's really important, if you're looking to do that speaking, I always tell people too, if they really want to get into it, sometimes people wait, well, when I write my speech, I'll go do one. If you really want to go for it, go book a speech, your keynote will come, right? Because if you need to show up at a certain day and give a talk, you'll create a keynote. And that's one of the pieces of advice I give my clients.
So I think we all know kind of how to, or not all know, but maybe we're all comfortable with staying engaged with our martial arts students on the mat. How do you stay engaged with a group of corporate adults in button-down shirts and slacks, right?
Sure.
What are some of the tricks you do to keep them engaged?
I mean, the things that I do is, number one is the first key point in speaking is, many times people will start with their speech with, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me, et cetera. And you will literally see cell phones kind of come up and people texting, right? So the first thing, your first 2 minutes out of the gates have to land. And I don't even think until a little bit later. I just come in and say, who heard that introduction and thought, oh my God, a karate lesson, 8 o'clock in the morning, right? And I'm there and I'm owning the stage from the time I get on. I'm getting them engaged. I'm asking questions of the audience and asking them to raise their hand, keeping them engaged. And then another thing that I do is I literally have them stand up. I have a whole thing where I bring people up on stage and they literally stand up and do some martial art movements, right? But it's just to do it, it's integrated within the message that I'm giving. So just getting people integrated, making sure also, I tell speakers, it's absolutely imperative that you are an effective storyteller. Okay. If you're just up there talking about facts, figures, and that can be important as well. But if you're not animating it with stories where you're getting them emotionally involved, you're going to lose an audience very fast. So, I mean, one of the things that I've had, and I'm sure a lot of your listeners, if they're out there looking to do speaking, we've got a plethora of stories where people have had tremendous transformation from our programs. And I have several of those stories that I talk about. I also talk about my martial art origin story that was so impactful for me and kind of set the stage for the work I'm doing now. So yeah, you have to be a good storyteller.
Yeah, and I think some people overlook that, right? And now, especially with the internet, where people are getting really freaking good at telling stories, especially with video, especially in like less than 30 seconds. I think sometimes at martial arts school owners, they think, oh, I got this belt from this person in this year, and I got this tournament. I'm like, dude, I've been martial arts my whole life. I don't even care.
Right.
There's no way they
Exactly.
care,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
And whenever I look at school owners' websites, I don't make websites or anything like that, but a lot of times I'll check them out. I'll see
Yeah.
like what's going
Yeah.
on over here,
Yeah.
right? There's usually, I'm not an expert, but I do know a couple things. And when I see their page about like maybe there's an instructors tab or something,
Yeah.
and if you're listening to this, go look at your About Us tab or instructors tab. Is it facts and figures or is it telling a story?
Oh my gosh.
Okay,
So
story
important.
people will remember. Facts and figures they're gonna click out in the first 10 seconds.
That's right.
Right. Like even starting this podcast episode, obviously I have to introduce you, right? But then I want to get right into it. Any video you watch on the internet is going to have a strong hook. The hook
Yep.
is the first 5 seconds.
That's
If you
right.
don't get people in the first 5 seconds, they're out. Right.
Exactly.
So the same thing when you're starting a class. If you're teaching a class, like you want to hook people in as quickly as possible. But the question I have for you is like, okay, I'm teaching the students on the mat. Maybe I have a lot of experience with that and keeping them engaged. What about the parents? Is there certain things you could do to help keep them engaged while I'm teaching a class?
I think that's a great question. And I think one of the things I was good at was doing that. Not only in the matter of when I was speaking, it was particularly when I was doing mat chats, et cetera. But if there was a key character development point that I was making, I would literally make it to the students and then say, parents, do you agree with me? You know, and at the beginning, maybe they weren't listening too well, but now all of a sudden they're like, oh, he might call on me too, right? The other thing that I would say when I'm coaching martial arts school owners is when you're delivering those mat chats, those message of the week, if you will, the character development work you do. Many of us will do it from the front of the class with kids all, seated maybe on their dots facing you. Parents are on the side on their phones, they're knitting, they're doing whatever. I would literally, not only myself, but I trained my staff that when we would do those mat chats, we would huddle up right in front of the parents. And so when I was giving those character development tips, of course, I was speaking to the students, but I was also speaking to the parents through the students. And if it was appropriate, getting them involved for feedback as well. So I think it's just so important because, when you think about a martial arts school owner and all your competition, as much as we maybe like to say, oh, it's, that karate guy down the road. No, our competition is baseball and ballet and all the other activities. And so if parents are getting pushback from their kid, but they're not seeing the true value of your program, at the first sign of a child saying they don't want to go, they're like, oh, I don't want to make that trip anymore because I got to take my daughter to ballet and I got to take my other kid to baseball. But if you literally are showing them the value, and I'll just give you an example. I knew when we started to hit a chord, I had a student who wanted to quit. We all do, right? And the parent comes into my office to tell me this, but not to say we need to cancel. She said, Master Natzke, would you please talk to Timmy? He wants to quit, but he needs to be here. All the lessons that you're teaching, he needs to be hearing this. So would you please bring him in and tell him why he can't quit? I mean, that's what you want, but you can't have that if you're not getting the parents involved in what the key themes are and what you're teaching in your school.
Yeah, I love that. Just even turning to the parents for a moment. It's like, parents, are you hearing this? Do you see how
Right.
amazing this is?
Yeah.
Do you see why this is so important? And I actually standing in a spot where they can actually hear you,
Yes.
right? If you're standing to the side and it's like a sideways audio, like they might not even hear you that well, especially if other parents are talking behind them or there's traffic noise or whatever, like making sure you're right in front. I can't tell you how many times I watched one of our instructors, right? And they're doing a mat chat and they're in the corner of the room whispering. I'm like, why are we
whispering? This is the gold.
Speak from the rafters.
That's right. 100%.
One of the things I like to do, because one of the things that is important that I teach martial arts school owners how to do is how to do like a mass enrollment.
Yes.
Right. So how to enroll lots of people at once that are funneled in from the local education system, local public or private schools, and how to convert them in mass. Because enrolling one-to-one is a different psychology than enrolling one-to-many. Okay. And if you're listening to this, like, man, I'd love to learn how to sell one-to-many. There's a book on it called Selling One-to-Many by, I forget the guy's name, but I've read it. But I also if you want to learn how to do it for martial arts schools, you can reach out to me. That's exactly what I do. Yeah. And one of the things we talk about is like, you need to keep the parents like engaged, not just like paying attention with their eyes, but with their hands, right? So you had people in your speech obviously raise their hands. So
Sure.
they're not going to raise their phone, right?
Right.
So you want to make sure that like you're constantly getting engaged. Like one of the things we do in the beginning before we do any mass enrollment, say thank you guys for coming today. You could be anywhere on a Saturday. If you love the class today and you think it's absolutely amazing, at the end, we'll have a special offer for people who want to continue. I know a lot of parents were calling or emailing asking how they can continue training in our program. Now have social proof. Hey, other people were doing it. Now maybe we'll do it. So is it okay at the end of the program, at the end of the class today, is it okay if I go over a special offer? Give me a thumbs up if that's okay.
There you go.
Cool. Just like a quick little, and we don't move until
Right.
everyone gives us a thumbs up.
Yeah.
Right. And then when we go over the sales part, it's not like, oh man, here
Right.
comes the sales. It's like, oh, we told them it was going to happen. We pre-framed it.
Yep.
And now it's like, hey parents, I know at the beginning I talked about this, but I want to go over the special offer. My goal is to blow you guys away, make this the most amazing thing ever. Is it okay if I go over that special offer now? Give me a thumbs up. Awesome. Yeah. And then we go over that special offer. We want to have them as a captive audience so they can't be on their phone. How do we have them as a captive audience? We have the parents come on the mat and we have them be a part of like the child earning their white belt. So all the parents are there. It's hard for a parent to be on the mat sitting in your space with their phone. People don't do that.
That's right.
Maybe at the back of the chairs for sure. But when they're on that space, now the captive audience, now they're not going to be distracted by anyone. And that's how we get like a lot of enrollments.
That's fantastic. Love it. Love it.
Super simple, tiny little things. But these are all things that I've learned from, I don't know, leadership books and selling one-to-many and stuff like that. Yeah. So is there any other thing you'd add to that?
Well, what I would add to that, I think that's brilliant. And I did things like that as well in my school. And what you're saying, when you distill it down, what you're really saying is you are interacting with them versus talking at them. Mm-hmm. And it's a whole different experience. If you and I are having a conversation and you feel like I'm just pushing facts at you and I'm not interacting, I'm not actively listening with you, interacting, it's a whole different experience. So when you get people involved in that experience, they're engaged with you, they're more apt to say yes to what you're asking. And even if they don't, they're going to walk away from that experience, go, yeah, it wasn't right for us to do it, but man, great people over there. I mean, that was another thing. I can't say it happened all the time, but I would occasionally have people come in who were recommended by former students. That to me was the ultimate endorsement, right? It wasn't right for them. They decided to leave. That's great. But they left under a really good manner and they felt comfortable enough to recommend us to their friends. So that to me was the ultimate compliment.
Yeah. And it also shows that they left on a good note.
Right. Exactly.
Like you and I recently were at MayaCon, right? And we had Chris Rodriguez up there speaking. Yeah. And one of the things she said that resonated with me, and I knew it, but it was good. It was a good reminder, right? Which was like, hey, when clients leave or students leave, you got to love them on the way in, but you got to love them on the way out.
100%.
Right? Yeah, too often we burn a bridge. This is almost embarrassing to say publicly. But we part of the industry, what we did for a really long time is we'd have contracts. If people didn't pay, we would hold them to it. And then we send them the collections. Now, I don't think people really do that so much anymore. COVID kind of killed that, but it would cause a lot of, I don't know, just like bad energy. People be upset, mad at you. If people love something, like they love a restaurant, they'll tell a couple people. If people hate a restaurant, they're going to tell everybody.
They're going to tell everyone.
Right? Yeah.
And I literally had a story, a personal story, exactly what you're saying. Several years ago, when I had my school, I had one of my competitors call me up on a Saturday morning and his lease was ending and he wanted to know if we could merge schools. Okay. So I'm like, great, and we, I think we created a very amicable and a very beneficial transition for both of us. But one day he was in my office and we were talking about transition plan. He goes, oh, I need you to meet my collections person. And I was like, what? He goes, I need you to meet and talk with my collections person. I said, what do you mean? And he proceeded to tell me that he had, had people on long-term contracts. And if they didn't show up, they took them to collections. And I was like, that won't happen. I mean, at that point in time, I had spent 10 or 12 years creating my reputation and my brand within the community. And the last thing I would want to do, just, because I'm chasing at that time $150 a month or something. I mean, for me, it was a marketing investment to not do that. Right. And so, it was one of the first, I put the kibosh on it like immediately. We're just not going to do that practice.
Yeah. Listen, we did it for a long time and it worked fine. But first of all, if someone doesn't want to pay anymore, they're not paying.
Not paying. Exactly.
Okay? It's just like, especially now with the internet, with reviews and stuff like that, you're just going to get destroyed. It's not going to be 100%. Worth it. But one bad review every once in a while is actually probably good.
Yeah, probably is.
whenever you see Google reviews that's like 5.0, you're
Yeah,
like, oh, there's not enough reviews, or it's
that's
all
right.
friends.
That's
A
right.
little
He had his
shaky, right?
friends call in. I hear you.
Yeah, it could be there's some you have some skepticism there.
Right.
But regardless, when it comes to making sure that people have a good experience, you want to make sure they have a good experience on the way out, because they
That's
will
right.
tell people, and like let them know, hey, like anytime you want to come back, you're welcome with open arms.
There you
We're here
go.
for you. Right. So we talked about a little bit about parent engagement. Now I want to go back to talking about kind of like some of the public speaking stuff that you do. Does that mean you're on the road like very often?
I can
Or
be. I can be. And, and I'm also on the road a lot with Superfoot. So,
Mhm.
doing those events as well. But, it's one of those things. I enjoy travel, and you get
Okay.
into a
But
routine.
you enjoy that travel?
I do, and I enjoy meeting new people and new audiences and things like that. And it's just fun for me. I
Okay.
enjoy that, and the interaction too. There's a whole different way of getting feedback, and neither one is good nor bad or better than the other. But there's the type of engagement we do as school owners where we're seeing people multiple times a week, and there's a whole beauty to that. And then there's another beauty to when you go in and you hopefully inspire an audience, and you have someone come up and go, "Oh my God, I so needed to hear that message today. That was incredible." There's a whole other value that comes from that too.
Yeah, especially that interaction you're probably only going to have once.
Right.
Maybe you'll talk to them again, but
Maybe
unlikely,
not.
right? My friend has an Instagram account called Rob's 10K Friends. He does a
Okay.
lot of public speaking too. Have you heard of him?
No.
And it's really interesting. So what he does is this project that he does where his goal is to speak to 10,000 people, random whatever, for 1 hour.
Wow.
Okay. So he's been doing it for like 8 years or something. I think he's at like 6,000 or some 7,000, something
So
like
is
that.
this does a group count in that? Like,
No, no,
so
all one on one.
individual. Wow.
Yeah. So
Wow.
it's going to take him forever. So take
Yeah.
12 to 15 years sort of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Right. And what he does is now he does public speaking. So now he gets hired by like NFL films, and he gets hired by
Mhm.
like big corporations that are like, oh my God, look at this crazy project he's doing.
Yeah.
And for a while, he was making not a lot of money because he's doing it as like a passion project for fun. But now it's like, he's like he's on this immersive masterclass on communication. And so that's how I actually met him. I have a friend who was like, hey, he'll happily interview you. So by the way, if you want to be part of his project, just
Okay.
find him on Instagram, message him. He'll happily, he always needs people. 10,000
Yeah.
people is a freaking lot. And he will do it virtual, right? So you can get it, you can be a part of it. But it's just like so interesting to hear, like when you talk to someone who's a really good communicator,
Mm.
you find that they're not the best talker, they're the best listeners.
Yes.
Right.
100%.
And it is just spectacular talking to him. And he didn't seem, I would think if I had to talk to 10,000 random people, I think I would get bored. I'd be checking my
Right.
phone to see like,
Right.
when is this over? Him, it is maybe, I don't know, maybe I was so excited. Probably not though. But but he didn't seem like, he seemed like he was like totally present.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And like, how often do we actually be totally present?
Well, then that is such a key to communication and a key to parenting for that matter, right? Is having those interactions where they're the only person in the room. I'm curious, has he ever shared his why as to why
I'm
he's
sure
done?
he has, and
Yeah.
I don't want to say it
Yeah.
for him because I don't
Yeah.
really know.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure why he actually got started. I'm sure I asked him at some point.
Right.
But if you're listening to this, you can find him on Instagram, Rob's 10K Friends. I hope
Okay.
that's his
All right.
handle. Hopefully that's correct. But if you ask me, you could be a part of his project, even if you're listening to this right now. So it's just so cool to see him on,
Yeah.
now he's like, okay. And think about it. Like if you run an organization that talks about communication, who more would you want than
Right.
someone who's like
Right.
dedicating almost 2 decades of their life to this,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. And there's a difference between talking with someone or talking at someone and connecting with someone.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds
Yeah.
like he's really learned the art of connection. What
Yeah.
an
Do you have any
amazing
tips
thing.
for that? Like, let's say I'm a instructor and I'm good at connecting with people on the mat, but I'm not as great connecting with the parents. And
Yeah.
you don't always have a lot of time. Sometimes you have
Right.
2 minutes, 3 minutes
Right.
for the next class. What kind of strategies can I do to make a real connection with the parents?
Well, I think you've already spoken to it. I think that listening is probably the key piece. In the background work that I've done as well in my coaching, training, et cetera, we have a concept called heart-centered listening. And so basically, without going into too much detail, we can listen from a mental standpoint and hear what they're saying. But what most of us are doing when we're hearing someone, We're not listening. We're hearing wah, 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 the noise. We're thinking about what we're going to say next. And one of the keys to heart-centered listening is literally, truly just listening to what they're saying at that time without any agenda. And when there's a natural break, then whatever comes. And what I found, and I'm not saying I'm always perfect at it, but what I found is when I'm just truly intentional in listening with someone, the right thing for me to either ask or share will come, and I didn't have to do it in a premeditated way. Does that make sense?
You think that's because it's more natural to you?
Well, and it might be natural to me, but it's also a matter of just even reading energy, because there's what people are, what they're saying, and then that's how they're saying it, how their body language is communicating, etc., the tension and tenor of their voice. There's a difference between, and I say this when I go to, young kids, and I talk about the 3 rules of concentration. Thank you, Tom Callis. And I use that as part of my talk. And I say, we hear with our ears, but we listen with our eyes, right? So, if we were to stop talking right now, we'd hear the humming of our computers. We might hear whatever that we're not even aware of. But when you're focused and you're literally looking directly in someone's eyes and you're being there with them, there's a whole different level of listening that occurs. And I think that when we do that, at least my experience was in my school, then people are much more willing to share with you, and not only share good things, but if there are things that, that are not going well, they'll share them as well, because you've got a rapport with them. I'd much rather have a parent come to me in a martial arts school setting and say, Master Natzke, I've got something I need to share with you, than not say anything. And then all of a sudden, 2 months later, they leave. Or it becomes something that's an issue among parents that I'm not aware of, right? So I always wanted to have that safe available so I could really have my finger on the pulse of what was going on at the school.
Is there a way you can teach someone how to be a better listener? Like, let's say I'm teaching one of my 17-year-old staff members, right? Like I could tell them to listen with their heart, but how do I actually practically do it?
This might be a simplistic response, but we role play in our staff meetings all the time, right? You role play when you're doing phone skills, you role play when you're doing enrollment skills and upgrades, whatever. What about if you role played, hey, Mrs. Jones, how you doing? Hey, I just wanted to talk to you about Timmy. He looks like he's doing really well today. Or, I noticed something was troubling him today. Is everything okay? Anything we can do to help him? And then just listen, but even role play that in your classes or in your staff meetings. Why not? Right? Because that if a parent is engaged in your program, even if a child is going through cycles where they're not, they're going to most likely stay because the parent's seeing value. So I would just say role play, And, there might be some instances that come up that staff come to you with like, hey, Mrs. Smith said this, I didn't know how to deal with it. Why not role play that as well in a safe environment? It's just like we give our students tools, self-defense techniques, et cetera. Maybe you're doing verbal self-defense. We give them those tools. Why not, arm your staff members with those same skills?
Yeah, that's great. I like that. I don't know why I haven't thought previously about just role playing that part of it. It sounds so simple, maybe because it's easy for us, but not easy for maybe a teenager or someone who's more reserved.
And it's so interesting. I'm glad you brought that up, because I think that we can also, because we're looking at our skill set in that regard, and we don't really see it in younger kids, because I've noticed, and this is a generalization, kids maybe aren't as effective as communicatively as they may have been in the past. But the gift we're giving our staff members by training them in this puts them head and shoulders against many of their peers at the same age. I remember, I had a number of staff members that worked with me through high school and then went and stayed locally to go to college. So they remained staff members. And one staff member in particular had to take a speech class, right? Freshman speech class, and coming back to me and saying, sir, you would not believe what's going on there. I mean, he was rocking the house because he knew what it was like to stand in front of a group and effectively communicate to little ninjas as well as, parents and grandparents. He said there are people that can't even utter 2 sentences. So we're giving them some great skill and leadership development by teaching them to communicate in powerful ways.
Yeah, I think that's great. And also that the parents need to know that that's what they're learning. Like, we might know that, but a lot of times I think there's a school owner who they'll go to someone and be like, hey, I need your help, because they feel like they're desperate and need like extra support in class. Yeah. But you can't approach it that way. You sound like someone desperate looking for a date, right?
Right.
You need to approach it as, like, I would love to teach you how to do some of our leadership skills that we do from teaching classes that will translate to other areas of your life.
That's right.
We want to invite your child or invite you to come on, and it comes off completely different.
Completely different, because there's a benefit to them. And there really is. I mean, if you're teaching and developing a really strong leadership program, one of my favorite things is, and particularly when I had my school, I did a lot of them, is writing letters of recommendation for students that are going on to college.
Mm.
And you don't, when you're with them all the time, you see the growth, but maybe you don't think about it over the span of 5 years that they've been with you, or 7 years. But when you're able to do that and see, and I've heard feedback from leaders. I do speaking here in Denver for high school students going into college, and oh my gosh, someone getting their black belt and being part of a leadership team, it's a huge benefit for those kids in their acceptance process for universities.
And so just to kind of go back, so there's one thing that I was thinking about while you were talking, and I'm sorry for that, but like one of the tips I love to teach the really anyone in terms of communication that I learned from this book called How to Talk to Anyone, or it's like 91 Ways of How to Talk to Anyone or something. It's by this author named Leah Lowndes. I don't know if I pronounced her name right, but like for me growing up in martial arts, I was a very shy kid. Like I am the example, probably similar to you, of like to learn public speaking, being in front of a group of kids as a teenager, and then getting better as I grow into adult. There's no way I'd be as good as a public speaker, or just like being willing to even get in front of people to do it if it wasn't for martial arts.
100%.
But sometimes I think people just don't know what the first thing to say is, right? Like kind of like dating, they think like, I need the perfect pickup line.
Yeah.
Okay. And they need to know something. So one of the things I like in the book by Leah Lowndes is she says the opening line you could say is like, so how do you like to spend your free time? And when you ask someone how you like to spend their free time, they talk about the things they actually enjoy and like, right? So if you say, what do you do for work? Some people might love what they do for work. I want to talk about it.
Right.
Some people are going to hate it, and they're going to say, I'm an administrative assistant, and they'll just be quiet, or I'm a plumber, and they'll just be quiet. But if you ask them how they like to spend their free time and they work a lot, but they like what they do, they're like, oh, I'm a trial attorney, and blah, 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 and they're going to talk about it. Right. So ask someone, how do you like to spend your free time? Because everyone asks what they do for work.
Sure.
And
right.
half the people love it. Actually, probably more than half the people. More than half the people probably hate it. Right.
Yeah.
And there's only a slim amount of people that actually love what they do. And they're just it's gonna cut the conversation immediately. Yeah. Right. But that's where you'll make connections. Oh, I really like scuba diving. Oh, I really like hiking. I really like blah, blah, blah.
Love it.
And that to me just opens up a whole world of conversation that makes it way, way easier.
Well, I love that, Matthew. And when you shared that, what it made me think of is you'd asked me before about effective communication as a speaker. When I'm coaching people that have aspirations of being speakers themselves, and they're having difficulty where they're nervous, they have, stage fright, et cetera, one of the things I'll always say to them is, make this talk about them, meaning the audience, and not about you. So it's not about you in terms of how you look and if you're dressed properly and that everything that you say is perfect and that your sentence structure is impeccable. Because when we start going inward and being self-conscious that way, it's going to increase our anxiety. Whereas if you're making it about them, that you're sharing something to help and benefit them, it takes the pressure off. At least that's been my experience.
Yeah, I've heard of the tip before, like picture everyone naked. Do people actually do that? Like, I've never done that.
Although my mom years ago, you say, well, just picture them on the toilet. Didn't work for me. But the other thing I'll say from a speaking standpoint is, and I think you'll relate to this, is that many times people will talk about anxiety in front of a room, and teachers for that matter as well. But I read a scientific study years ago, and it was talking about, those studies where people they'll ask them how they're feeling, and then they'll give them the answer, and then it will light up in a certain part of the brain. So they're happy, it lights up here. They're sad, it lights up here. Well, they had done this study years ago where they literally had the electrodes on and they were studying the frequencies. And they were going through all these emotions and they were all lighting up individually. But then they came upon two emotions that were communicated that lit up in exactly the same way. And the first one was anxiety, but the second emotion was excitement. So the brain couldn't differentiate between anxiety and excitement. And the only thing that was creating the differential between those two was the meaning those people were putting to that feeling. So if they were like this, or like, oh my God, I'm so nervous, because most people say, well, I need to stop being nervous. Well, the more you try to push it down, the more anxiety you're going to feel. But if you say, wow, I must be really excited, I'm ready to go, it shifts the entire perspective of it. And that's another key, whether you're going to be speaking in front of a group of people or you're going to be on the deck, teaching your first couple classes. If you can reframe that feeling in your mind, I've just found it's really effective.
I think there's a famous book about that, like Anxiety is Good or something.
Oh,
It's
is
not
there? Oh,
the
okay.
title, but
Yeah,
it's so funny how people think it's always bad. Like anxiety is bad. You don't have anxiety. It's like, well, it just means you care and there's
that's right.
meaning. It shouldn't be debilitating. It shouldn't make
Right.
you go into a
100%.
dark room on the couch and seize up,
That's
right?
right.
But like, it just means you care. And like anytime, I don't know, like listen, you speak for a living, so you do it way more often than I do. I do it rarely. But when you do it, I'm assuming there's still a little bit of nervousness and a little bit of making
I'll tell
like
you what, the day, Matthew, that I'm ready to go on stage and I don't feel butterflies, it's time for me to pack it in.
mm,
100%. I'm always, and it's interesting because many of the same skills that I learned as a martial artist, whether going through testings or competing at a national level, like I was able to do, all those same skills of visualization, breath control, out picturing the results that I want, all those types of things. I use all those skills when I speak, all of them.
that's beautiful.
Same thing I was doing before I was going to get in the ring.
I love that. Yeah, taking slower breaths. I think there's something like stand like Superman, like this,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've read a couple, body language books. I
Yeah.
mean, not a lot, not a couple, probably a lot actually over the years. And it's one of those things that if you want to get better at it, you have to study it,
That's right.
practice it. Like
Exactly.
anyone else,
It's like
hire
anything.
someone like you, or read books about it. Watch you
Yes.
like. There's a YouTube channel I love called Charisma on Command,
Oh,
and they take communication skills from celebrities. It'll be
yeah.
like how is Leonardo DiCaprio so captivating? And it'll be like him with like Jimmy Kimmel, and they'll like point out like the one thing he does or how he makes Jimmy feel
Ah,
comfortable, and like all these like little things that people do, and it's entertaining because it's like these celebrities that and they're obviously, if they're an actor or a celebrity, they probably got to where they are because they're really good at communicating
right.
somehow or captivating people. So they're like the best people to learn from,
Yeah.
right? For those things. Maybe some of it's natural, obviously,
Right.
but you
Right.
gotta study it.
You
If you want
do, and
to
practice
study
it,
martial
and
arts.
and practice it. And being a martial arts instructor, at least I'm obviously a little biased because this was my path. But what a great laboratory! Who out there who's wants to do speaking or whatever has a captive audience every day they go to work. I mean,
I never thought about it in that way.
yeah.
That's cool.
But think
Yeah.
about that. I mean, I'm sure there are some industries out there, but every day you go to work as a martial arts instructor, you have a captivated audience. Whether you're
Yeah.
training your staff, you're teaching classes, or you're communicating with parents, either one on one or, a lot of times in groups. And so, yeah, what a great way to develop those skills.
So I want to transition a little bit and do some rapid fire questions,
Okay.
if that's okay with you.
I'll
We're gonna
do
have
my
a little bit of
best.
fun. Okay. Now I say rapid fire, but if you need time to
Okay.
answer,
All right.
there's no rush whatsoever. You could be dead silent if you want to, because I'll edit out the silence.
Okay. Good.
So make it go faster. Okay. All right. So let's dive in here. First question I'm going to ask you is, who would be on your martial arts Mount Rushmore?
Okay. Well, the easy one is Bruce Lee, right? And of course, my instructor, Bill Superfoot Wallace, would be on there.
Got it.
But let me think outside the box a little bit too. So I'm gonna go with two more here, right? Let's see. There has to be something, being a Korean martial artist, General Che's probably up there because of what he did in terms of not necessarily saying he was the best person. Sorry, ITF friends out there. The easy one for me, just because of my influence, is Joe Louis, right? Because of the Bill Wallace, Joe Louis thing. But I think there's someone out there that's missing. I'm not getting to, but those would be my four right now. So we'll say Bruce Lee, Bill Wallace. You know what? May I switch? May I switch? And this is not to upset any of my JLSF friends, but I put Chuck Norris up there.
Chuck
In
Norris. That's a
terms of
fair
the
one.
impact and the time that I did meet him and interact with him, I was just blown away at what an amazing man he was. So I'm
Wow.
gonna
Okay.
replace Joe Louis with Chuck Norris.
Wow. Can't believe that. I'm calling Joe Louis right after this.
Eh.
All right. Next one. What's one martial arts weapon you could get rid of if you could?
What's that swingy chain thing?
Nunchuck?
No. The long chains the kung fu guys use.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a 3-part staff sort of thing.
Yeah, not even that. It's a long chain, like a whip chain. Is what I'm
I know what
thinking
you're
of.
talking about.
And they wrap it around themselves, etc. Yeah, I get rid of that one.
Picked one of those. I've never picked one of those up.
Yeah,
I have
yeah,
no
I get
idea
rid of one
what
of
that
those.
is.
I never had either, but if that would be my choice, I have no interest in learning. How's that?
Okay. If you were in the UFC, what would your walkout song be?
This might sound a little soft, but maybe because I use this sometimes in speaking. It's Carrie Underwood and Ludacris Champion.
Soft. I'm just kidding. I actually have to go back to listen to it. I don't remember what.
I mean,
How does
there's a whole rap section to it. And
the
anyway,
rap section? Now it's hard. Now it's
yeah,
hard.
yeah,
All
yeah,
right, all right.
exactly.
You started with Carrie Underwood, though. You should have.
Yeah, no, I know. That's what I was thinking.
All right, that's funny. All right, next one. Let's see here. Okay, what's one martial arts style you don't like to practice,
Don't like to practice.
or you wouldn't want to learn?
Yeah, I wouldn't want to learn. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I'm kind of going through my little catalog here because have dabbled in some of those as well. I mean, I think that it's more of a broad statement. Things that are really esoteric, that are just all theory based, but you don't move a lot. And I've seen that sometimes in some, oh gosh, I hate to say this because I don't want to insult
Just
anyone.
say it.
But I mean, there are sometimes in Chinese martial arts that I've just seen that there's a very, and I am all into mystical, you know what I'm saying? But when they go a little bit too, death touch thing, all that kind of stuff, I think it's intriguing. But when you're talking more in a class than versus moving and talking about what you could do, I have issue with that.
Yeah, that's fair. That's
Yeah.
fair. Mine is Aikido. I don't
Oh,
like Aikido at all.
no.
Like, no disrespect to those
Yeah,
people. I've taken a bunch of classes
yeah,
before, not a lot,
yeah,
some,
yeah.
and I just can't get into it. I can't get
Okay,
into the
right on.
weird turns and twists and
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
flops.
So,
And
yeah, I'm also a Hapkido black belt, so
okay,
there's a lot of similarities. So I
okay,
enjoy that. But
yeah,
and I'll tell you what, if you ever see two Hapkido guys spar, you ever see
yeah,
what that
yeah.
looks like?
I've seen it. Yeah, yeah,
Grab my
yeah.
wrist, grab my wrist. That's what they do.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. I want to see you walk out in like the big Hapkido like skirt
Oh,
pants
sure,
thing.
sure, yeah, exactly.
The
Yeah,
Carrie Underwood song. Oh
that's
man,
there. You go.
it's
Yeah,
so hard. All right. What's your favorite late night snack?
popcorn.
Popcorn. Okay, just salt, butter.
Yeah, salt. Don't do butter. I don't do dairy. Yeah, and a
You make it at home?
good amount of avocado oil when I make it. Yeah,
Okay, cool. Do you make it like on the stovetop sort of
yeah.
thing?
I got actually the one you turn. Yeah, I
Okay,
do,
cool,
man.
cool.
Yeah, I'm old school.
I I didn't even know that you can make popcorn on a stovetop
Oh
because
yeah.
I
Oh.
only grew up with a microwave. It wasn't until I'm not joking. I didn't know it was possible. I was at my girlfriend's house, right? And at the time, it was like a newer girlfriend, right? And I'm watching her mom put it on in a big
Yeah.
pot, and I'm like, "What the heck's she doing?" I'm like, "She's making popcorn." I'm like, "You can't do it on a pot like that." She's like, "Yeah, you can." I was like, "What?" I literally had. It sounds so silly, but I grew up basically only eating microwave foods because we
That's
had a lot of kids in our
hysterical.
family. And I was like, "Oh," but I did discover this might be a pro tip for you, but maybe you
Okay.
already
All
know.
right.
The problem. So then I got really into popcorn. I was like, "Oh, great, low calorie snack. I can
Yeah.
eat a lot of it. I can just shove it in my face,
Right.
you
Right.
know."
Right.
But the problem was that a lot of times the salt would go to the bottom,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So and I kept on having that problem, and it really annoyed me. Also, because my girlfriend does she'll also put cayenne pepper,
Okay.
like a little bit, and she
Yeah.
like really seasons it up. I prefer just salt, but anyway, it always goes to the bottom, and would always be a lot of spices that were just like wasted. So I looked it up online, and I bought like a hairspray bottle.
Yeah.
Okay, not actual hairspray, just hairspray bottle
Yeah.
with like a fine mist.
Mm-hmm.
You fill it up with water and you shoot it over the popcorn so the water goes over the popcorn and then you put the seasoning on. But it's so little you can't taste any moisture, literally
Right.
nothing. But then it sticks to it. You mix it around, spray a little more water, sticks to it, and it works great. So I might have just upgraded your
Look,
popcorn game.
who would have thunk it? Oh my gosh, this is worth the interview right here.
Yeah, exactly. Worth every part. If you weren't doing public speaking, you weren't teaching doing martial arts,
Yeah.
what's one job you would want to have?
Well, I already do coaching and things like that, but
Besides that, yeah.
yeah, I quite honestly thought about ministry in the past. Yeah,
Cool.
yeah, and I think there's a lot of parallels.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
so yeah, I've thought about that in the past.
That's a great one.
Yeah.
What's one job, even if you're making $100 million a year, you would never want to do?
I would avoid like the plague working in a craft store.
A
You know,
craft store.
yeah, like when they have all the yarn and everything like that,
Yeah.
I literally start to shake when I'm in one of those stores. I just can't do it.
Oh my God. So if
Yeah.
I want to torture you, I should
Yeah,
send
yeah,
you
it would
a
just
bunch of
be, it's
yarn.
like nails. I'd rather hear nails on a chalkboard than work in one of those stores.
Okay. All right. Would you rather spend 1 year at the North Pole or 2 years in the Sahara Desert?
Wow. I guess I'm going to say North Pole because it would be over sooner. And I probably get to see, what are the lights, the northern lights
The
that
Northern
come through? I
Lights,
get to see
yes.
those. Yeah, that's what
If you don't get eaten by a polar bear, definitely get to see
it's
the
all
Northern
right.
Lights.
I'd find a cave. Yeah.
What's the best gift you've ever received?
Wow. Boy, I have to think about this. I know it was one that one of my boys gave me. I'm going to say that my youngest son is a videographer. And so he's given me some really good video stuff. And one year, what we did is my mother was turning 80, her sister 70, my sister 50, my youngest son 30, and my niece, my sister's daughter, 20. And my son filmed us. I interviewed everybody, 60 Minutes style, about their
Mm.
lives. And that was
Mm.
an amazing gift.
Very cool.
Yeah,
So did everyone watch it?
we haven't seen it in a while. He hasn't dusted off yet because he still doesn't have all the editing done. But it
Yeah.
was just going through that experience was amazing. Because we'd asked my mom, okay, Lauren is turning 20. What was life like for you at 20, Mom? Okay, Jason's now 30. What was life? And so, I mean, I have that now, for all prosperity for my mom. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. I did something similar, definitely not nearly as good, but I interviewed my mom and dad separately. By the way, my parents hated this idea, didn't want to do it. I had to beg them.
Okay.
I interviewed them separately and asked them to give a message for when they passed away.
Wow.
For my other, they have 9 kids.
Oh my gosh.
Okay? Yeah, so I'm one of 9.
Yeah.
Okay, I have 5 sisters, 3 brothers, 9 total, same 2 parents, reluctantly still together.
Okay. All right.
And so I sat them down one day, like on the deck, and we went through each person. And I was like, okay, what would you? And I also the siblings and also their grandkids, and I asked them to give them a message.
So individually to everyone.
And yeah,
My
yeah. So,
gosh.
but they no one's ever seen these videos,
Yeah.
besides me. So I'm like, I put it in my Google Drive and I saved it, and like.
Yeah.
One day when they're no longer
Oh
with
my
us, we'll have
gosh.
this beautiful
What a beautiful
capsule
gift.
memory. Yeah, but I like the idea of I need to record it again because it was about 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And I think it'd be good to have like an updated one. Thank God they're still with us.
Yeah.
But I like the idea of asking, what were you like when you were 20, or what was happening in the world when you were 20? That's a great idea. So I'm going to mark that in for the next time I record it with them.
Right on.
All right. So one more. So what's one question you wish more people would ask you?
Why do you do what you do?
You don't think you ask that?
Why do you do that? Yeah, because, and I'll answer that question. One of the things that I've really found in the work that I do now and the work that I did before, and I'm a big Simon Sinek fan. And he has the book Start With Why, and he's got a great TED Talk out there, or like a small talk where he talks about what's called the golden circle. And I don't know if you've seen this before, but he said the outside of the circle is what we do. And that's what most of us do. Like, even when you gave the example of, you asked someone, how do you like to spend your free time? Most of us say, hey, what do you do for a living? So we're really good at talking about what we do. And then many times what we do is we'll differentiate how we do it. So martial arts, well, we do it this way. This is why we're the best school. But very rarely do we tell people why we do things. And that's where the real power is, because that's where we connect, I think, as human beings, when people hear an inspiring story of why. My affirmation for this is to inspire, lead, and empower people to realize their full potential and happiness. But if I think of the why, I mean, it was martial arts that put me on an entirely different spectrum in my life, growing up in a household where I had a father who was at home, but he was also an active alcoholic. So the messaging that I was getting in terms of just, what it was like to be a male role model were quite mixed. And when I met my Taekwondo instructor, Grandmaster J.K. Lee, and I had 2 very, very inspiring moments with him. One is when he told me he was going to make me a champion. And in my head, as a 13-year-old, I thought, okay, I'm going to win a bunch of trophies and medals. But as I thought about it later on, what he was saying to me and what my heart heard was, I believe in you. And I realized that gift. And then later on, when I was having a conversation one-on-one with him, and in Korean martial arts, of course, we use the term sabum nim versus sensei. So I asked him, as a 14-year-old junior black belt, what sabum nim meant. I already knew the meaning, or thought I did. And he paused for a moment and he said, sabum nim means father. Now, when he said that to me, it's like something just opened up inside of me. And not because he was trying to replace my dad, or not because he was saying anything disparaging. What I took it as is he was saying, you need to approach your students with the love of a father. And that to me has always been an inspiration to really connect with people in whatever role that I'm playing, particularly with younger people, of course, is to, come with that love of a father. And that was life-changing for me. So that's kind of, I guess, why I do the work I do.
That's beautiful. Thanks for sharing that. So before we head out, I want to tell us about what's going on with the big event, Superfoot's birthday. Lay it on here.
All right, excellent. Well, thanks so much for allowing me to share, Matthew. Yeah, so I'm the director of business development and black belt testing for Superfoot Systems. I've been with Bill Wallace going on 40 years, and this year, December 1st, 2025, will be his 80th birthday. So what we're doing is we're getting all together in Indianapolis, Indiana, the weekend of November 7th and at the Wyndham Airport Hotel to celebrate the 80th birthday bash for Bill Wallace. So we're going to have a black belt testing on Friday afternoon around 3 o'clock. In the early evening on Friday, around 6:30, we're going to have a celebrity meet and greet. We've got Michael Jai White, Don the Dragon Wilson, Joe Corley, Jeff Smith, Dave Kovar have already committed to be there, in addition to other martial art luminaries. And then that Saturday, the 8th, starting at 8 o'clock in the morning, all the aforementioned people I noted will be part of the instructor team. So we'll be doing seminars all morning and all afternoon. The final two seminars of the day will be Michael Jai White right after lunch, and then Bill Wallace will do his seminar for everyone. We'll take a little break at about 4 o'clock, and at 6:30, we will have the big birthday bash, where we'll be celebrating 80 years of Superfoot Wallace.
Is he gonna carry a cake in half? Like, what's
We're
going
gonna,
on?
I don't know. We're right now. We're lucky. We got all the logistics done. Now we're getting people involved. But if you go to superfootsystem.com, you'll see the banner up there. Hit the click info, and it's got all the information. You can come to just the meet and greet and the dinner. You can do just the seminars. You can do both combined. You can also invest in tables of 10 at a discounted price. And we would love to see you there. We've got a big old banquet room to celebrate and honor him. And I know he's really looking forward to it as well.
That's beautiful. Yeah, when I went up and talked to him about it briefly with you at the table behind the event, even though he probably just talked about it a bazillion times, like, I think your birthday is coming up or something, and he like lit up, and it was like cool to see. Very cool to see. All right, thank you so much for listening. My name is Matthew Brenner. And if you have any questions, you can follow me, Matthew at wdojo.com, or find me on Instagram at blackbeltbrenner1. If they want to find you for coaching.
Yeah, thanks, Matthew. Just go to my website. It's my name. It's chrisnatzke.com. So CHRIS, N as in Navy, ATZ as in zebra, KE.com. And you can go and check out all of my speaking programs. You'll see testimonial videos. You'll see me in action on stage, and then also talks about my coaching programs as well.
Cool. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, Matthew.